hold of me. Oh, yes, it did. I said something got a hold of me. I went to a rally one night and my heart wasn't right. I said something got a hold of me. Well, freedom got a hold of me. Oh, yes, it did. I said freedom got a hold of me, of me. I saw the people sitting in pain, and my heart just wasn't the same. I said freedom got a hold of me. I got one more. Listen. Justice got a hold of me. Oh, yes, it did. I said justice got a hold of me, of me. I went to a rally one day, and my courage came into way. I said, a freedom, justice, it got a hold of me, yeah. That was just a warm-up. Now this song, you've heard it before, so you can sing it with me. Here we go. I woke up this morning with my mind, and it was stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, it was stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, it was stayed on freedom. Revolution, revolution, revolution. Let's try that together. I woke up this morning. Let me hear some hands. It was stayed on justice. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on justice. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on revolution. Revolution. Come on. Revolution. Revolution. One more time. Come on. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stand on freedom. On freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on free. Revolution, revolution. Come on. Revolution. That's it. Revolution. Listen, a people united can never be divided. A people, come on. Come on. Come on. Pick it up. Raise it up. Raise it up. Come on, a people. Tell your neighbor. Tell your neighbor. Let me hear you. Come on, a people united will never be divided. A people. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Come on. Louder. 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 Come on. A people united. Come on. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on freedom, on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on freedom. Come on. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on freedom. Revolution. Come on. Revolution. Revolution. Repeat after me. Say, I believe. I believe. I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe that we will.
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 I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win. Come on. I woke up this morning with my mind. Stand on justice. Stand on justice.
I woke up this morning with stayed on.
stay on justice.
Now I want y'all to do something.
Keep clapping.
You don't ever make your
Keep
theomusicologist work this hard.
Come on.
So first of all, everybody stand up.
Come on.
Everybody stand up.
Come on, stand up.
Now this is a Moral Monday. Y'all said y'all were having Moral Monday. You didn't say you were having a lay down Tuesday. You said you were having Moral Monday.
That's it.
All right. So first of all, everybody get a placard, especially these folk behind me, the speakers. Bring the placard, because we always about a message, right? We always want to make sure. Everybody bring a placard, and bring them the placards that pertain to North Carolina, particularly poverty. Come on, bring them. Bring them. Come on, people, pass out all the placards. So everybody's got one. Come on, all over here we need placards. Everybody's got one. Hold them up. Behind me, y'all got them? Yep. See, because we want the media to hear what you're saying in the songs and in the placard. Put them up. I don't see placards over here. Now I see about 5 folk having fellowship over here. Y'all remember we said, if we don't listen to each other, then we can't demand them to listen to us. So for the next hour and a half, we don't need people having sidebar conversations. We need to be focused, right? Y'all say Moral Monday, this Moral Monday. Now the only thing we're not doing today is an action. All right, everybody got placard. I still don't see over here about 20 people. You have to pay attention. Where's the tri-chair leaders? You have to do, I was talking to Rodney, you have to do this sometime, y'all, because it's the message. It's too hot to be out here and not make sure folks don't get the message. That's right. Now, for a moment with your theomusicologist, put the placard in front of you. Everybody stand, and whenever you're on the stage, the worst thing you want to do is like some of I can talk about preachers. When preachers, the whole church is shouting and the preacher got his leg crossed.
Yeah.
That's the worst. Like, what is wrong with you? If your people shouting, you ought to be. All right? So let's put the placards on the ground. Put them right on the ground in front of you. You'll pick them up in a minute. And we're going to do that woke up this morning, and she's going to do about, I know you're going to do somebody's hurting, but at some point. But everybody, well, I want y'all to work with her. Let's get a clap going together. Come on, you do it. Come on, everybody. Especially back here. Because y'all the leaders.
Let me hear you.
Everybody. See the difference in the sound? A whole different energy right there. You feel it? You feel it? And tell the folk in the back, stay focused.
Sounds good.
And here, now you do it.
All right. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was freedom. Oh, this is practice. Come on. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on free. Revolution. Come on. Revolution. Come on, let's say justice. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on justice. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on justice. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on justice. Revolution. One last time, repeat. I believe. Come on. I believe that we will. Come on. I believe that we will. Let's go. I believe that we will win. Yes, I believe that we will win. Last time, I woke up this morning with my mind. It was freedom on free. Come on. I woke up this morning with my mind. It was stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning. Let me hear you last time. Say real loud. Revolution. Forward together. Forward together. Now if you believe in the power of justice, make some noise.
afternoon, everyone. It is a privilege to be with you today. My name is Rodney Sadler, and I want to introduce a friend of mine to you today. The Reverend William Barber is a long-term resident of the state of North Carolina, graduate of the great college in Eagle, North Carolina Central University, MDiv at Duke University School of Divinity, D-Min at Drew University. Reverend Barber has been a long-time pastor. There was a prophet in the Old Testament named Amos, who got famous because he was a prophet from a small town named Tekoa, who went up north to the big city to tell the Lord, this is what the Lord said. And this is what Reverend Barber did for 30 years, pastored at Greenleaf Christian Church in Goldsboro, North Carolina, and now has a national stage. Reverend Barber, on the 29th of April 2013, took 16 of his best friends into the General Assembly building and said that the way that the General Assembly in the state of North Carolina is governing is a problem, because they're hurting the poor people, and they're hurting the immigrants, and they're hurting black people, and they're hurting brown people, and they're hurting the people of the state of North Carolina, and we can do better than this. With this movement, he started what we now call the Moral Monday movement. But guess what? That wasn't enough for him. Because he said that this Moral Monday movement from the state of North Carolina needs to be something that spreads out around the nation. So he, with Liz Theo Harris, came together and started something called the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. In essence, some of you remember him from the Democratic Convention a few years back, when he talked about that what we need in this nation is a moral defibrillator, a way to shock our heart back into action. It's not about talk. You know, so many preachers out there will stand in their pulpits and say wonderful things on Sunday morning, but then on Monday you don't know where they go. But Dr. Barber's not a believer in a small G God, a God that lives within a sanctuary. He's a believer in a big G God, a God that believes in changing the world, a God of justice, a God that cares for the poor, a God that cares for the weak, a God that cares for those who have been left out and cast aside. I want to introduce you today to my friend, William Joseph Barber II. Let's give him a rousing round of applause.
Hey all. Before Reverend Barber, our beloved Bishop Barber comes up, we are going to hear from two impacted speakers. We are going to hear from Madeline, where are you, and Judith Brown on healthcare. Madeline is a low-wage worker in North Carolina, and she wants to talk to you about her experience.
That's right.
Judith Brown is coming up right now. Thank you very much.
Always.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening in order to talk truth to power. In the city of Charlotte, up to 50% of the calls that come through the 211 coordinated entry, calls that are people facing homelessness, people who are already unhoused, those people, 50% of them are people with disabilities. 4 of my current clients right now are in that situation. As Executive Director of Project 704 Forward, I support people with disabilities as they navigate through our system of care. And right now, it is more a system of carelessness. We have the means to connect people to proper health care, but lack the whole heart to do it across the city. We lack the will to change the system of competition in human services and housing. We lack the mindset to connect large and small organizations that could create a strong web of care around this city. We work in silos that allow people to be displaced from the community after they sustain a life-altering or a health-altering condition or injury. They fall out of employment, housing, health care, neighborhood social supports, and connections, and we just go on about our day. This is Moral Monday, and yet we lack the moral fortitude to care for the most vulnerable. We close our eyes and ears to the sick, to the shut-in, to the unhoused, and to the poor. From my own life experiences, I learned that I would just be replaced at my job. My home would be sold to someone else, and I and my children would face hunger, lack, and health iniquities in a system not built to help my family. I stand before you as a person with a disability to plead with you. Put down the pride and the stigma, and this is the way we've always done it. People are crying out for help, and it's time for a better system of care. One that works for all residents. We all have value in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our workplace, in the city, in our families. Let's show that we have the morals to lift up those who need it the most. Let's work together to make sure that no one falls through the cracks of care. Let's join together to work together forward and move forward to find a better way to serve. In Project 704, and I'm ending, we have a saying, and it's on my shirt. Equity, not charity. I need you to say it with me. Equity, not charity. Equity, not charity. Equity, not charity. Say it again. Equity, not charity. Say it louder. Equity, not charity. Equity, not charity. Thank you very much.
I just want to start off by saying I don't do speeches, so bear with me, please. Growing up, I didn't have much as a kid. Wasn't able to do things like my friends because I didn't have my parents didn't have the disposable income like their parents did. I would sometimes have to make the choice, they would have to make the choice, do we fill the propane tank for heating the house, or do we go out for the celebratory dinner? And due to money being tight as a kid, I learned how to save since my dad was open about our financials. But because of this, we lived a very simple life. I wanted more for myself, so me and my fiance moved here to Charlotte for better opportunities. I thought I would be able to get a decent entry-level job with benefits at a company that I could grow with, but that wasn't the case. I ended up getting a labor-based job with no benefits, no guaranteed hours, and minimum wage. I soon realized that it wasn't right. Even though I stayed, I was told I was replaceable every day. I had to pay the bills some way. I'm unemployed right now, but I do what I can to get by. If it wasn't for my fiance, I'd be living back at home. The places that...
It's okay.
It's all right, baby. It's all right.
It's all right.
Stay in there, baby. We got you.
The places I've applied to, they say I don't meet the qualifications, but they never elaborate on that. On paper, I meet the qualifications to a T, but in some cases, I feel like that it's because it's the way I look on my resume. Saying you don't meet our qualification is HR code for we don't want a masculine lesbian for the face of our company.
That's right. That's right.
So, with all that being said, I pray every day that something will come up and I'll be on top again.
Forward together. Forward together. How many persons here identify as poor and or low income? Okay, where are you? I need you to identify. Okay, great. I need you to come with your placards and stand here. I want to ask that we give placards to this young lady. I want to make sure you don't block her because you just stepped just a little bit too far. I understand. They'll turn it right in the lens. Just do this for me. Okay, come here, baby. Come here. Right. Madeline, right. Our baby is not a thing. I know her name, but it's just an endearment that I use as a pastor after 30 years. So don't ever think it's because I don't know the name. Others who come, the low impact workers, diversity. I want about 12 people here who look like the broad diversity of North Carolina. This is tomorrow Monday, right? Yes. Okay. So they want them to come up around. those of you who are standing behind, I'm doing some teaching now. When I became a bishop, one of the things is that you teach, and it's important to should teach anyway. Good. Does it look like North Carolina behind me? Is it white? Is it black? Is it Latino? Is it Asian? Come on. Don't be ashamed. Is it age, low, poor, and or low income, low wage? Teachers. You can be, you ain't had that's right, retired teachers, as teachers assistants at college. We got to show the country and state what this looks like, right? And diversity. Gay, straight, young, old. Now, let me take a few months. First of all, I want to thank the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign and all the allies for having this Moral Monday here in Charlotte. Let's thank them. Say yes. And we're just coming out of the Mass Poor People's and Moral Action Congress. Over 1,000 delegates from over 40 states, many of you are there. And our focus was death in America. Moral Monday has a very specific character, and I want to talk a little bit about this because for the media, what you see here happening today is going to be an intensification as we re-engage Moral Monday throughout the state of North Carolina. Then I want to talk about why it's so important that we do. But Moral Monday's focus is always on the state legislature. It's not on county committee, it's the state legislature. Now in your county, when you look at your state legislative delegation, or it's on the congressional delegation, you have to not only look at what their party is, but what their positions have been. So if you have a majority of state legislators that have done the right thing, then Moral Monday is to push them to keep doing and do more. Amen. If you have a majority or some of them that's doing the wrong thing, Moral Monday is to challenge them. Now we do have Moral Mondays around the state, and we'll be doing some. And when we were in 2013-14, we did Ashford. That was Moral Monday in Ashford. It was 10,000 people. And one time we did 14 in one day on one Monday. But I want you to be clear. Whenever we have Moral Monday, the Moral Monday event always happens at the government facility where the state legislators are, either locally or otherwise. We always put first and foremost the impacted voices. And people who are impacted in 5 areas. Systemic racism, primarily around voter suppression. And when we say racism, we don't just mean black people. We talk about black, brown, Asian, Native, and white people who experience the residual impact, the collateral impact of racism. Systemic poverty. Say systemic poverty. Systemic poverty. Ecological devastation. Denial of health care. The war economy. And the false moral narrative of religious nationalism. Those are our 5 issues. We're not all over the place. Now somebody said, Reverend Bobby, you didn't say LGBTQI. Yes, I did. Because when we do those issues, we disaggregate the numbers. So in other words, when we talk about racism, we talk about how does it impact the LGBTQI community. When we talk about poverty, we talk about how does it impact. The way you bring everybody in is by including everybody in the numbers and in the solutions. Okay? So that's critical. That's critical. Somebody say critical. I'm just getting back from Alabama where another young man was tased to death and his mother asked to do eulogy, and I actually had been in the hospital for a few days dealing with the issue, so I'm slower today, but I wanted to come. Secondly, we are here, and the whole purpose of Moral Monday, whenever we do it, it's never such thing as a Moral Monday. When we started in 2013, it went for 3-4 years. And Rodney said it was 17 of my best friends. Actually, it was 17 of the best friends of this state. Amen. It was 7 clergy and 10 people and students. And the most important person that got arrested that day was the lady who had cerebral palsy. They arrested her that day in the state legislature. And by the way, Moral Monday always gathers somewhere they don't want you to gather. So you can't have a protest where they assign you. So this probably be the last time we'll do one here. You know how they in Charlotte, we like for all the protests to be held here. Well, okay. We'll do it one time. We did it and when they arrested her, and you know why she was there? She said, I'm here because I have health care. But I'm here to protest the fact that I live in a state that's blocking health care for folk that don't have it. So in Moral Monday, you can either be a part because you're impacted or because you care, right? Moral Monday is always diverse. Moral Monday always includes religious leaders, impacted people, and advocates, all right? And so for the media, what you see happening here today is we're planning now for an intensification all the way through 2024. We're planning for the Poor People's Campaign National Call for Moral Revival in North Carolina to help pull the family together again. Because you know when we started Moral Monday in 2013 with 17 people, by the end of the summer, over 25,000 people. And by February, over 100,000 people were in the street. The largest multiracial gathering in the South around these issues ever, even since the Civil Rights Movement. And so we're going to be in the streets, in the legislative suites, in the courts, in the voting booths. Now, why do we do Moral Monday at the state legislature every Monday? Because every Monday at 6 o'clock, they open the legislature. So the reason we had Moral Monday there was we had an hour of focus, challenging what they were doing. We knew we didn't have the votes to beat them, but we weren't going to let them do it in quiet and in the dark. And then we went into the legislative building. How many of y'all remember? And we went into the vestibule area between the Golden Door, the Senate and the House. And we protested, but we weren't just hollering, we were focused. We had our facts right and our placards right. And then they would arrest us, and then we would come back the next Monday, but it was always focused because we wanted to make sure that the state knew. And what happened is when we started, the governor, for instance, McCoy, who was an extremist, was at 61% in the poll. By the end of the summer, he was at 39% and never recovered. And I'm going to tell you some other things about Moral Monday because it is not just doing something on Monday. It's a strategy, right? And it's always we engage some form of moral action. We also are trying to shift as I said, the narrative. And today, so you'll know, what started here in North Carolina has now grown to Poor People's coordinating committees in over 42 states. Amen. We can reach at any time over nearly 2 million people through social media now and growing. And last year on June 18th, we had the largest gathering of poor and low-wealth people, the most diverse ever in the history of the country. Nearly 150,000 people gathered on Pennsylvania Avenue. And then we left there with a plan and organized 1,000 people who touched 7 million poor and low-wealth infrequent voters in 15 states. And we can tell you how those voters impacted the outcome of the election, because the truth of the matter is when poor and low-wealth folk vote, those that are $50,000 and below, they tend to vote progressive. Poor people have been lied on. White poor people have been lied on for a lot of reasons, and I don't have time to examine all of that. But that's what's going on. And so now we're planning, in the Poor People's Campaign here in North Carolina, we've got 4 things we want to do well. One is we're planning 30 statewide actions on state capitals in 30 states in February of 2024. Simultaneously, all at the same day, with a minimum of 5,000 people at each gathering. Think about that. If that happens simultaneously, to challenge the political coup d'etats that are going on in state legislators, right? And what's happening. So we're not asking every state coordinating committee to focus on that. Secondly, we are asking every state coordinating committee to build out a minimum of 30,000 people who are trained in that state on our issues and our agenda. Y'all got the fact sheets here, right? The fact sheets, and who's ever got them, start handing them out, because we want folk to have that. Then thirdly, we're planning on June the 15th. I see it on social media, but I do want to make sure, this is another thing I'm teaching now, don't y'all get mad with me. If you're dealing with poor and low wealth folk, you can't always put it on social media. You got to have some hard copies. Am I right about it? Yes. You got to have some print. So I'm looking for the print, Clinton, and y'all see if anybody's here. We need to print copies because you got to know who you're trying to reach. If you're trying to reach folk in a homeless camp, you're trying to reach folk in public housing, man, you may not always have the, what's that little thing, that she's got up? Yeah, they may not have, you know, so, but you always have it in writing so people can carry it with them. But on June 15th of next year, we're going to have a mass poor people's low-wage workers assembly moral march on Washington for the second time. We're going to have over 400 partners, over 50 religious bodies. It's going to be led by the most powerful moral voices in the country, which are impacted people, not people speaking on behalf of people, but impacted people speaking on behalf of themselves. And then we're going to lead there for a summer push all the way to the polls to touch 15 million poor and low wealth infrequent voters in 15 states. Now why? Because poor and low wealth voters now make up 33% of the electorate in this country and 40% of the electorate in battleground states where the elections are determined by less than 3%. There's not a state in this country where if poor and low wealth voters who have not voted, if you could mobilize those that are already registered and those who are not, 25%, not 30%, not 40%, 25% could determine who sits in the legislature, who sits in the Senate, who sits in the Congress, who sits in the presidency, who sits in the government. And you know what that percentage is for North Carolina? 19%. I'm not hollering, but can I teach like I'm doing? 19%. Poor and low wealth, hear me tomorrow Monday in North Carolina. Our goal is 19%. Let's make it 20. Because 20% of poor and low wealth voters, I'm talking about black, white, or Latino, Asian, Native, gay, straight, doesn't matter. 20% voting as a block, voting for their lives, that have not voted in the past 2 or 3 elections, can fundamentally determine who sits in the governor's office, the presidency, the Congress, the Senate. You know what it is in Georgia? 7%. That's why our campaign touched 2 million voters in Georgia the last time. And we don't have to endorse candidates, we can endorse principles. We can endorse consciousness. Because if you tell people where people stand on the issues, they'll know who to vote for. You don't even have to tell them who to vote for, you just have to tell them, he voted against your living wages. Right? You know what the number is in Florida? 3%. Folk weren't DeSantis this, DeSantis that. They need to be mobilizing. 3% of poor and low wealth voters. Hear me, I'm not talking about middle, poor and low wealth voters. 3% in Florida could determine the outcome of every at-large election in Florida. You know what it is in Michigan? 1%. See, this movement, we don't just holler, we think. And that's why I know sometimes the leaders get a little rough with me, push with me because I push, but it's not being mean. We have strategy. The worst thing you can do is be loud and wrong, and the worst thing you can do is want to change with no strategy. It ain't enough to cuss the darkness. You got to have a way to get to the light. That's why we say clergy. We got to have clergy. And we say clergy who have congregations and synagogues and mosques because they have constituencies, right? And we mobilize. So if you mobilize 25% of poor and low wealth people in any state, along with their advocates, and along with moral and religious leaders, that coalition can change the outcome of election. The people who are extremists, and many times they claim to be Republicans, I don't use partisan titles, so they're extremists. And I say they're extremists because they vote against the people, not because they're Republican, because you vote against the people, you're an extremist. You vote against poor folk, you're an extremist. But they win by default. You see, in 2019, there were 140 million poor and low wealth people in this country. 43% of the adult population, 52% of the children. 140 million, that's 60% of black people, 24 million people. That's 64% of Hispanic, that's 38 million people. That's 40% of Asian, that's 8 million people. That's 60% of indigenous, native, that's 2 million people. That's 33% of white people, that's 66 million. So actually, there are 40 million more white, poor, low wealth people than there are black, but black people are 40% higher in percentage. And there is in where the lies get told to divide us. Right? Now, the government tries to say our numbers are wrong because they say you're not poor if you make over $13,000 a year. See, the government measurement for poverty is deliberately low to diminish the problem. They say if you make $13,000 plus, you're not poor. If you make over $24,000, $25,000 on the family of two, you're not poor and low wealth. They say you're in the low middle class. Now, I'm a preacher, but y'all know what kind of lie that is, right? That's a damn lie. That ain't just a lie. That's a damn lie, right? Because, you know, and so that's why our movement, every time we gather, we can't be all over the place. We got to teach and keep saying the same things because most folk don't know that. Most folk don't know that 60% of black folk are poor and low wealth. They don't know, and that's 24 million people, and they don't know that 33% of white people are poor and low wealth, and that's 66 million people. They don't know that. We have to be that movement that teaches that. Because what has been the goal, particularly in the South, to make sure that the masses of poor black folk and poor white folk and poor Latinos never come together and form the kind of political voting bloc that can fundamentally change the economic architecture of the nation. But guess what? We are that movement that's going to change that reality. Another thing that we're going to have to keep saying and teaching, because it's going to help us bring more people in. Look at the diversity of this crowd. Poverty is the 4th leading cause of death in America. Now think about that. Every night on the news, I bet you they tell a story about homicide, somebody dying, somebody shot. More folk die today from poverty than from homicide, than from obesity, than from diabetes, than from gun violence. We have to be that movement that says, wait a minute, we are not going to allow poverty to be the 4th leading cause of death and it not even be discussed in our political debates. The 4th leading cause of death. There's no way you can be for life and not be fighting against poverty. Now, each state gathering of the Poor People's Campaign has to then be specific to that state. Why must we have moral Mondays? Why must we mobilize in the streets, in the courts, in the legislative suites, and in the voting booth? We've got to mobilize, and here's where the mobilization happens. In North Carolina, there are 4.2 million poor and low wealth people. 4.2 million. That's 40.2% of the population. Now, some of that changed during COVID when we did COVID investments, but as soon as we got a little ways out of COVID, the extremists said we're not going to do it anymore. They didn't want to do it at all because a lot of them believe in social Darwinism, survival of the fittest. It comes from Adam Smith, a form of economics. You just let people die off. You don't correct the system, right? But we had some investment, and it changed some of these numbers. But say that in North Carolina, 40% of the people are poor and are low wealth. How in the world can we not make this issue a centerpiece in our political debate? That's why we have to have more money. That's why we're going to have these 30 gatherings at State Capitol. That's why we have to mobilize these votes. In North Carolina, there are still approximately 1,000 people dying from COVID every week, and millions of people, 1 million people lack access to health care in North Carolina right now. 500,000 because we have not expanded health care. And one of the reasons we started More Monday is because when the extremist legislature won, and they only won by redistricting, they didn't win by winning, they won by cheating. And we weren't able to undo the cheat for about 7 years because of the courts. And once Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act was gutted, we had no way to make them pre-clear. So they would get elected, but eventually we were able to win in the courts and prove that they had created an unconstitutionally constituted legislature. But by that time, they had blocked Medicaid expansion ever since, 2008, 2009, 2010, whenever, 2013, right? So here we are, 11 years almost. And that's 500,000 people. Now, when they blocked it, they took 12 minutes. In 2013, I was there in the committee room. They didn't allow doctors to testify. I'm talking about the extremists who call themselves Republicans. They didn't allow the doctors to testify. They didn't allow sick people to testify. They didn't even allow veterans who needed Medicaid expansion to testify. In 12 minutes, they blocked 500,000 people. Now, of that 500,000, 340,000 were white, but if you had listened to the debate, they were suggesting with metaphors that the only people that needed the health care were poor, lazy, quote unquote, black and brown folk. Somebody say, unpack the lies. So since that time, 500,000 people have been without health care. We've lost millions of health care jobs, right? But 2,800 people have died every year. And we have 1 million people who don't have health care. And just recently, with the ending of continuous eligibility for Medicaid, 372,000 people are expected to lose their health care in North Carolina because of the extremists in the Congress who call themselves Republicans, who are turning it back. And between 2020, North Carolina experienced a 1.5-year decline in life expectancy. And approximately in North Carolina, 4 million workers, or 78% of the workforce in this state, still do not have access to basic family leave. Now, that's the negative, but the positive is that's our organizing group. This is who we must bring together. This is that sleeping giant. See, so you got to know the ugly to point to the beautiful, right? It's an ugly number, but inside of the ugliness, kind of like for me as a preacher, the cross is ugly, but inside of the cross, there's a possibility for resurrection. Somebody pray with me because I'm about to feel my help here. Who are we after, Martin, the Poor People's Campaign in North Carolina? We're after the 37% of the people in North Carolina who make less than a living wage of $15 an hour. That's 1.8 million people. What if we mobilize 25% of them who have not been voted? What of that 1.8 million, 1.6 million are adults, 28% are Asian, 52% are black workers, 59% are Hispanic workers, 29% are white workers, 45% are working women. So women, not black women, women are the largest group of people working for less than a living wage. We got to organize these women, the sisters. And black women, 59% of black women work for less than a living wage. 59% in North Carolina. And then the other issue is the issue of children. In North Carolina, because of the child tax credit, 2 million children, 1.2 million households receive the child tax credit. 600,000 low-wage workers received an earned income tax credit during COVID's high days, and it brought them out of poverty. Now the extremists in the Congress who call themselves Republicans have blocked child credit and blocked earned. And if you block earned tax credit, you are worse than Ronald Reagan, because even Ronald Reagan supported that. That's right. You hear what I'm saying? And child tax credit could end 60% of child poverty. The last thing is that when it comes to food stamps enhanced benefits have been reduced. 813,000 people are going to be impacted in this state, including veterans. So the reason in the Poor People's Campaign we bring up these numbers, because these numbers also represent our power. And we must cry power. Cry power. And we must understand it's all right to be woke, but if you really want to make a difference, you got to wake up, get the hell out of bed, and go start organizing and go to the ballot. Understand why they're scared of this more money. In 2013, by 2017, we beat the extremist governor, Sam Holt. We mobilized new voters. We won in the court. Maumondé worked from 2013, 2017. They have won because of redistricting, gerrymandering, and they cheated and got a supermajority. But as soon as we won in the courts and blocked the redistricting, guess what happened? Without that, we went from 7-6 in the Congress, the Democrats, to 10-3 Republicans who call themselves extremists, who call themselves Republican, 3 Democrats. But now, when we dealt with redistricting, it's back to even. Have y'all noticed that? And then you broke the supermajority right here from Charlotte. Then you had somebody do a tricky sneaky. But y'all can deal with that next election. Hallelujah. I ain't telling you what to do. I'm just saying you can deal with that. See? But you can't deal with it just being mad. You got to deal with it being organized. Touch 3 people and say, all we need is 19%.
All we need is 19%.
Now tell them, let's just get 20. Let's just get 20 anyway. Let's get 20. And so, brothers and sisters, I'm just a little tired today, and I apologize to the organizers for being a little too long. But what we have to do with each one of our campaigns is stay focused. Systemic racism, systemic poverty, ecological devastation, denial of health care, the war economy, the false moral narrative of religious nationalism. What are y'all fighting for? We fighting for living wage. 80% of Americans want a living wage. We haven't raised the living wage for 14 years. It's way past time. 60, 70%, 80% of Americans want health care. It's not radical, it's right. Living wage, health care, expanding child tax credit, fully funding public education, and expanding and protecting voting rights. And if we go out and tell people this is what we're fighting for, they'll join us. They'll join us. But every time we gather, we got to be clear. Every time we gather, we got to put people, the impacted people up who say, I'm sick and tired of being impacted because I know it doesn't have to be like this. People don't have to be dying. And then we've got to recognize why we must challenge those proponents of cultural wars. It's because they want to deflect. See, understand, the reason you got extremists in the North Carolina legislature who call themselves Republicans who want to talk about wokeism is because they don't want you to really see what they're doing to everyday people. The reason they want us fighting about books and banning because they don't want to talk about living wages and health care. See, because they know that the majority of the people aren't with them. So what cultural warriors do is they create deflections. What moral, righteous warriors do is we unpack the lies and the deflection, and we don't fall into it. We change the conversation and make the conversation get on the right issues, and we start declaring some things are not about Republican versus Democrat or liberal versus conservative, but right versus wrong. And when we do that hookup, every time in history there's been a hookup between poor folk and moral and religious leaders and advocates. Every time in history there's been a hookup. Black folk coming together, white folk coming together, Hispanic folk coming together, Asian folk coming together, Latino folk coming together, indigenous people coming together. Check the record. Every time there's been a hookup, there's been a change. Every time there's been a hookup. In North Carolina in the 19th century when they created fusion politics and poor whites and got together with former slaves and black folk, they changed the country. They changed the world. in the middle of the Depression, when folk got together and created the bonus rallies, and black and white and brown and other folk came together to fight for a more equitable society, they changed the nation. In the second Reconstruction, during the Civil Rights Movement, when black folk and white folk and Jews and Christians and Muslims and Latinos, when they came together, they changed the nation. Dr. King said that in this country, in the South, the Southern oligarchy has always been afraid of the masses of poor white folk and the masses of poor and low-income black folk coming together. I say it's time to realize their fear. It's time that they say, you ain't seen nothing yet. If you thought the first Reconstruction was something, if you thought the second Reconstruction is something, you know this third Reconstruction is going to be off the chain. We will mobilize because we must save the heart and the soul of the nation. We will mobilize because we must secure health care and living wages and voting rights for everybody. We will mobilize because we cannot accept poverty being the fourth leading cause of death when it doesn't have to be that way. We will mobilize as long as the North Carolina Constitution says there are these truths, these inalienable truths that all persons are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among which are life, liberty, the enjoyment of the fruit of your own labor, and the fruit of happiness. As long as the Constitution says the government is supposed to be for the whole and not just for the lobbyists, and not just for the wealthy, and not just for the greedy. As long as Article 11, Section 4 of the North Carolina Constitution says that treatment right of the poor and the unfortunate is the only way for a civilized state to exist. As long as the Bible says, let justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. As long as Jesus said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for I've been anointed to preach good news to the poor. As long as the Bible says that every nation and every state and every politician and every church will be judged by when I was hungry, did you feed me? When I was naked, did you clothe me? When I was in prison, did you come release me? When I was an immigrant, did you welcome me? When I was the least of these, did you lift me up? As long as those things are true, we will mobilize. We will organize. We will build. We will bring a third Reconstruction into existence. And we will be known as the generation that rose up and put the extremists in their place. And just possible, if we do it right, some of them will come on over here and join us in the fight for love and the fight for justice and the fight for grace. Forward together. Forward together. Forward together.
Somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on far too long. Help me. And it's gone on far too long. And it's gone on. Come on. Well, somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Y'all help me sing. Come on. Well, somebody's hurting my sister, and it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on. Yes, it's gone on. Well, somebody's hurting my sister, and it's gone on. Come on, and we won't be silent anymore. Listen. Well, somebody's trying to hurt our children, and it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. Yes, it's gone on far too long. Well, somebody's trying to hurt our children, and it's gone on far too long. And we won't be silent anymore. Listen, well, somebody's trying to take our choices, and it's gone on far too long. Well, it's gone on far too long. Well, it's gone on far too long. Well, somebody's trying to take our choices, and it's gone on. That's it. And we won't be silent anymore. That's another one. Well, somebody's trying to silence our voices, and it's gone on.
For too long.
Yes, it's gone on.
For too long.
Yes, it's gone on.
For too long.
Well, somebody's trying to silence our voices, and it's gone on.
For too long.
And we won't be silent anymore. I want you to sing real loud on this one. Well, somebody's trying to stop our movement, and it's gone on for too long. Yes, it's gone on for too long. Yes, it's gone on
For too long.
yeah, somebody's trying to stop our movement, and it's gone on for too long, and we won't be silent anymore. Say that part again real loud, and we won't.
And we
won't. Let me hear you.
be silent anymore.
Come on, help this baby sing. And we won't. Come on. And we won't be silent. Last time with everything you got. Come on.
And we won't be silent anymore.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
If you believe in this movement, make some noise.
And we won't be silent anymore. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming and hearing what Dr. Barber has said to us, and hopefully we will be what he has asked us to be and do, which is to carry it out. I am happy to have before us an impacted speaker who is from Haiti, who will come and share his story. His name is Reggie Vigne. Did I pronounce it correctly? Reggie Vigne. Please come forward and tell us your story.
Can you say hello and thank you to everybody in English?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Reggie is one of the people that is representing thousands of Haitians who came to our shores and our border last year. And he is one of 50 Haitian refugees that churches in this community collaborated to resettle. And he's living right here in Charlotte. Unfortunately, we lost his translator. So I am going to tell you very quickly about Reggie's story. He took his family from Haiti because of the rampant kidnappings and killings that are happening there by gangs. I work in Haiti, so I'm very familiar with that, but I have the option of going back and forth to Haiti when I want to, when I can, when it's safe. Someone like Reggie and his family and many others have to leave because of the way that they are being treated, because of the danger, the abject poverty, and the lack of any kind of opportunity. So when you hear people say, well, why are people coming here? Why can they not just stay in their country? They are seeking legal asylum here in the United States because they are in desperate straits in Haiti and other countries. So I want you to give Reggie a big round of applause for having the courage to come to the United States. And I ask you to pray for Reggie because he is still trying to bring the rest of his family here. They are separated right now, and it's just devastating for him, for his wife, and his children. He has not been able to find work here. That's another problem. The asylum system takes forever. That's yet another problem. But Reggie is standing strong, and he knows that with folks like you and us behind him, he can continue to seek his dream here in the United States. So can you say in Creole, tell them thank you.
Merci beaucoup, et thank you so much.
Merci un peu.
Thank you, Reggie. And next up, we have Miko Chosen McCarthy. Chosen McCarthy. Chosen, period. She was impacted by police violence in 2011 when her son was senselessly and tragically killed by law enforcement officers. She is a fierce advocate for reform, and her work led directly to the changes in federal taser policies. Welcome, Chosen Miko.
Okay, they say I only got 3 minutes, but I don't think I need that long. So my son was murdered in 2011, July the 20th. I just celebrated his 12th year anniversary. So what I did through my son's tragedy, we got the taser policy changed. We got CMPD's tasers changed out. They wasn't able to have their tasers for 6 months. And they got new tasers where they have an automatic shut-off switch, because the previous ones they had, they had to actually count to do it. So my only issue that I have as it relates to when you're looking at police reform, a lot of people, we say defund the police, but we have to have clarity when we're speaking on defund the police. It's more or less reallocating the funds where it need to go. So that's one big issue. One of the things, the problems that I had in my son's case, they hid the identity of an officer. They also tampered with evidence. All this stuff came out of federal court, and currently the officer, which is Michael Forbes, still currently has a badge. So when people say, what justice did you have, I say none at the end of the day, because he still has a badge. So what they do is they shuffle him through the department, and because we have one board, which is the Civil Service Board, to say, well, do something with them. That's still not good, because if you have a bad apple still circulating in there, then he's still gonna do what he do. He's still gonna be bad. One of the issues that I had is at that time, it was Rodney Monroe. They want to be movie directors, and I feel like you need to stop trying to be movie directors and releasing the final cut to the community. That's why you have chaos and confusion, and that's where you're going to have protesting. If they bad, just say they're bad. If they bad, get rid of them. One of the things they love to do is look at the victims, and we have a problem with the media, and I always tell the media, stop trying to go downtown and go look up a rucker. That ain't got nothing to do with the price of tea in China. It ain't got nothing to do with what's currently going on. You need to focus on what's currently has taken place right then and there. That's a major issue, because then what they do is you had to go pick your 12. It's not going to be no jury of my peers, because my son's trial was not none of his peers. It was Michael Forbes' peers. I had an all-white jury that said he did do excessive force, but Internal Affairs say he did nothing. I'm confused. There's no statutes of limitation on murder. Why he ain't prosecuted? So we can still have this conversation, this dialogue about reform, but we need to start holding these chiefs accountable for some of the actions that take place, because they do have the ability to change policy. We don't always have to go legislation, but we do. So that's one issue. And let me see what else. y'all gotta work with me. So it's hard though, like when I see a lot of different situations with mothers, whether it's I'm gonna just say this, let me go back. We as black folks need to stop saying black on black crime, because no other race has that label but us. And we got a bad habit of adopting their ideology, and we shouldn't. It's a crime of convenience at the end of the day. That's just the true facts indeed. So when you have those situations, we have officers that don't properly do the job. When it's eye skin color, they don't care. We just another piece of paper. They're gonna do what they do, they might get shuffled. It's a mother out here that was impacted. It took her, we had to get a different DA for her to get some form of justice, which was a little bit of justice, but not a lot of justice, because the person's still free. So when you look at all of that, I got you almost time's up. I got you. Again, y'all need to stand up, Know which division that you need to go in when you want to actually try to do policy change. If it's a legislative issue, get behind this campaign and do whatever it takes to make sure your voice is heard. But if it's something that the chief can change, we need to hold him accountable for his actions. And that's just what it is.
So next we'll hear from someone who's going to talk about education. Nisi Mendez, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a community engager, motivated by the killing of Trayvon Martin. She dived headlong into African American studies, gaining new insight and appreciation of her community and herself. She gives back this newfound knowledge through craft and street apparel. Emerging from COVID-19, shut down with most schools, mostly in neighborhoods of color, deemed Title I. She felt her purpose of education grow with a focus on children. Please welcome Nisi Mendez.
I'm gonna stick to script. How's everybody doing? In Webster's dictionary, literacy means the ability to read and write. The definition of the word read is to look and comprehend the meaning of written and printed material by mentally interpreting the characters or symbols in which it's composed. And to be an educated person is to be literate, cultured, and aware, woke. I tried to break down to my grandson the power of reading and how strengthening the brain muscle is just as important as the rest of the body. If you don't stay on the entire body, parts of it will get weak. You won't be able to know the areas of the basic needs like physiological needs, survival needs, air, water, shelter, and sleep, safety and security, esteem, actualization. Reading is the foundation for everything. It can stimulate the mind. It can give you the confidence that you need to become more knowledgeable in a specific subject, guide you asking questions that you might not have otherwise been aware. Then you ask these questions and you get to the resources that are needed. I think about the legs of colonialism, the system that doesn't want us to read. Why? What is the fear for the black and the brown child that they pull out all stops to not have you read? If you were like I was in 2013 with the blinders on like what the horses wear, then you only seen things that were directly in front of you. And then the folks in this system will keep you there in that lull, in that mindless state, a place where you don't ask questions, you don't exercise your rights. I had the opportunity to sit in on scholars that were taking the end of grade testing. After the testing days, I was appalled at what I had seen. I had fallen asleep and kids had fell asleep, breezed through it, and or couldn't just read the questions. I'm learning a lot. I have learned to relearn how to teach a child to read. So what do? YouTube videos, purchasing books, connecting with organizations out here, the desire to make a difference. With that, what will you do to make this change? Thank you.
You know what? We need to give a hand to our sign language interpreters. You guys are like dancing. So, exactly. So, I'm Jennifer Roberts, and I'm here to introduce our next amazing speaker, but I want to say one thing first. You are hearing tonight from people who've been impacted. Some of these folks may have never spoken before in front of a crowd. We are empowering them, and their stories are powerful. And that is the power of this movement, is hearing it's real people. It's not numbers on a legislative bill with all these numbers behind them and who's passing who. It is people's lives. And that's what we need to remember and take away, because you may feel like we're singing to the choir tonight, but the choir needs to practice. And so we are practicing. We're going to retell these stories. We are going to shout them out. We are going to email and call our legislators. One more thing, we have a couple elected officials here. I just want to say, local officials, Commissioner Susan Rodriguez McDowell, Solon Meck, Nancy Carter, Councilmember Luana Mayfield. They are also your advocates. Did I miss anybody? Let's give all our elected officials and candidates a hand. And now, music is one of those things that unites us, that strengthens us, that empowers us. Music is not Democrat or Republican, and we have started with music. You heard from theomusicologist Leslie Oliver. Let's give her a hand. Where'd she go? And now you're going to hear from a lead vocalist and program director for A Sign of the Times. She is also a lyricist, a writer, a speaker, and a huge supporter of social justice through her music and her amazingly smooth jazz voice. So please join me in welcoming someone who is making a difference every day. She's incredibly talented, and she is going to join us. Here we are, Toni Tuppence. Give me a hand.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for letting me be here. I brought drummer Baba Gary Mumford with me to bring the ancestors into the space through the drum. So, this song is called Ella's Song. And I want you all please to sing the refrain with me. I'll do the verse for you, but you gotta sing the refrain, okay? Here we go. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Sing it with me, say, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. We who believe in freedom shall not rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. The older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. 'Cause to me, young people come first. They have the courage for where we fail. And if I can but shed some light on them as they carry us through the gale. Say, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. And struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand up and fight is the only way my struggle survives. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. At times I can be quite difficult. I bow to no man's word. We who believe in freedom for power, not needing the light to shine on me. I need to be one in the number as we stand against tyranny. Saying, y'all, we do believe in freedom, cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Come on, sing, everybody. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until. Let me hear y'all sing. Sing it, y'all. Come on, sing it with me. Say, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. Here we go. We who believe in freedom will not rest until it comes.
Hey y'all, my name is Clinton Wright, and I am one of the national organizers with the Poor People's Campaign and a social justice organizer with Reverend Barber's organization, Repairers of the Breach. I stay up in Durham. It's so good to be here in Charlotte. One quick announcement before we go on with the program. If you have not texted moral to 38542, let's take out our phones and do that right now. This is how we're gonna get plugged in to do those things that Reverend Barber was talking about. So we're gonna text the word moral, M-O-R-A-L, and we're gonna send it to the phone number 38542. That way we can get plugged into that statewide action that's happening in Raleigh in February so that we can help build our coordinating committee here in North Carolina so that we can grow this movement in Charlotte and across the state so that we can find ourselves in DC next June so that we can mobilize that 20% of poor and low income voters. So again, the phone number you're texting is 38542, 38542, and then the text message you need to send just one word, moral, M-O-R-A-L. And I look forward to seeing you in Raleigh and in DC, and I look forward to that 20% of voters being organized right here in Mecklenburg County. Thank you so much.
Let me thank you for your patience. And I'm going to ask right now that we take a few moments to just a word of silence as we had someone who was not feeling well and we've had to contact the paramedics to assist her. So just give a few minutes. And this is why this work is so important. Because if we have persons who are standing out here for the cause and recognize that they don't have health care, then this is how they get care. And it's extremely expensive. So we hope that whomever the person is, we wish them well health and Godspeed. We have 3 more impacted witnesses to come before us this afternoon, and they will be brief. We have Richard Leak, who's going to speak on environment. We have Ellie Harlan, who will speak on trans rights. And we have Kenny Robinson, who will speak on housing. Please come in that order. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to stand and speak a few minutes on injustice in the workplace and in the community. I'm a part of a concerned citizen group in Baden, North Carolina. Well, I work for Alcoa Aluminum, and they dumped hazardous material in the black neighborhood. There was an east side and a west side. The west side consisted of black, and the east side consisted of white. All the hazardous waste was dumped in our community. And we've been fighting with Alcoa for almost 13 years trying to get them to clean up the hazardous waste in our community. Over 85 to 95% of the black people in that community has died with cancer and still fighting cancer. As a matter of fact, one of my friends was just diagnosed day before yesterday with cancer. And I just wanted to make you aware that until we get somebody that's willing to stand up to these big organizations and let them know that we want our communities cleaned up. That's all we are asking. I just stand to represent the concerned citizens of Baden, North Carolina, and ask that the leaders of North Carolina get on board and help us get our community cleaned up and help stop the rate of cancer that's destroying the people in West Baden. Thank you for listening.
My name is Ellie Isley, and I'm here today to speak to you about the real effects that these bigoted anti-trans and anti-LGBTQIA+ bills are having on our community as well as our whole state. For those in Raleigh, these bills in our community are pawns in a political power game that they play. What they don't realize, or that they don't notice, is that we are people, just like everyone else. We are people with lives. We are people with stories. We are people with dreams and aspirations. They forget that we're people, and that we want to live in peace like everyone else. It has been 2.5 years since I came out to my amazing wife and began my transition. And I wouldn't be where I am today without her support. Back in 2021, at the height of the pandemic, when I came out and began finding community and growing into myself, I had a whole different set of fears than I do today. Back then, I was worried that I would lose everyone simply for being myself. I was terrified that no one would accept me, that I was being selfish for wanting to be finally comfortable in my own body, or that by simply using the restroom, I would be assaulted and told that I did not belong. And those were just a few of the fears that I had when I first began transitioning. Fears instilled in me and every other trans person as far back as we can remember, simply because we are different than cis people. Fast forward to 2022, when these bills first started making their way into the legislatures around this country. 13 different states passed 26 bills. 90% of those bills were aimed at trans people and trans youth specifically. 14 of those were sports bans, which specifically target trans girls. That year was terrifying for us. The onslaught was so fast, so targeted, and so blatantly bigoted towards an extremely small minority that until then no one had paid any attention to. And now, only halfway through the year in 2023, we have a staggering 561 bills in this country, in 49 states. And of those, 79 have already passed and become law, leaving 353 still active in legislators, ready to be passed. 11 of them are here in North Carolina, 3 of which have passed our legislature and have been vetoed, but are waiting an override. These bills are designed to incite fear in children. They are designed to harm them by denying them health care. They are designed in a way that will increase queer youth suicide rates, and those who wrote them don't care. And the people who voted for them even laughed at that fact. The horrifying reality is that these bills will kill children. We know that 82% of trans people have considered suicide, and nearly half, 40% of us, have attempted. Those numbers are highest among trans youth, and those numbers go up when these laws go into place. But it isn't just when they pass that's the problem. The very fact that we are treated as less than human by those making these laws, and oftentimes our own family, does irreparable harm to all of us and often kills those of us most vulnerable. The hate never does stay in Raleigh, though. It permeates our society, fomenting bigotry and hate in our daily lives. We all too often hear yet another one of us has been murdered, and simply for being trans. Just a few weeks ago, Jacob Williamson, an 18-year-old man with the rest of his life ahead of him, was killed in North Carolina simply for that fact. And his killer will likely never face punishment because the trans panic defense is still legal here. And he wasn't the only one. He was the 14th this year. These ideas that we are less than human, or that we should be eradicated, or that there is a debate or question around our existence, all stem from the same ideology that targeted our community, forced us to wear a pink triangle, and put us into camps 100 years ago. We have to stand up to these ideas and against these bigots who perpetuate them, because if we don't stand up now, I fear we won't be able to for much longer. We are in the middle of a genocide in this country. Healthcare is being banned for trans youth at an alarming rate. And in Florida, they have banned adult care. And I wish I could end this with an uplifting quote like, "The night is always darkest right before the dawn." But the sad reality is that our community may not have a dawn if these attacks are allowed to continue. Too many of my siblings aren't even here to see this moment in our struggle. I fear too many more will perish from these machines of hatred and bigotry that seemingly run our country. But I do believe that if we come together, we have a hope to fight these attacks before it's too late. And as Dr. King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it does bend towards justice.
My name is Kenny Robinson, and I'm the Executive Director and founder of Freedom Fighting Missionaries, which is a nonprofit organization that supports the formerly incarcerated and criminal justice involved individuals. I am here tonight to speak to you about homelessness that we have here in Charlotte, North Carolina. One of the major issues that I came across as I was starting and building this organization was funding and how to obtain the funding. And each time I went to the funders said, "Okay, well, Kenny, where's the data at that says that?" Right? Well, you're saying that. So I went out to try to search for the data that says what happens when a man or a woman is released from that detention center, from state or federal prison, and that data did not exist. This was in 2022, and that data did not exist in no form or no fashion. So I went to Leading On Opportunity, and I went to the Urban Institute at UNC Charlotte and asked them to help us put together a report that was specific on Mecklenburg County for men and women who are homeless post-incarceration. I was a reviewer on that report. It's a published report, and here is some of the data that you and I petitioned for, because I was not able to petition for that level of data by myself. That was done by me and the community who supports this work. Some of it says incarcerated people with a prior history of homelessness were 22 more times likely to have another homeless episode after their release. Another data point, Black individuals are overrepresented in Charlotte, Mecklenburg detention centers and homelessness services. It's easy for us when we can see it right there on the side of the highway in the tent. But I assure you that those individuals who face homelessness during that height of COVID are still homeless. They have been pushed out to the woods. They have been pushed out to the outskirts. They are sleeping on couches under bridges. They are calling 211 seeking help right now. Many of them are women with children. Another fact for our organization at Freedom Fighting Missionaries, 65% of the people that we serve are women with children, facing homelessness with their children, and their barrier is their criminal background. So please continue to do what has worked here in Mecklenburg County to face the homelessness issue, and that is individuals like you coming together, coming out in force, whether that's online, where you're sitting at right now, or at your dinner tables. Please continue to join us in this fight, and we will see the day that homelessness does not exist in this way in Mecklenburg County. Thank you.
These stories are strong. These stories are moving. Moral Monday is a moral movement, and every major faith tradition knows about taking care of the poor, the least of these. It's a moral issue. We are going to now hear from 3 religious leaders. So an imam, a rabbi, and a minister walk into a rally. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have a good joke. But they walk into a rally and they show that interfaith is strong and powerful, and that's what we need to carry our message forward. So let me now introduce, we have Rabbi Alexis Erdheim with Temple Bethel. We have Imam John Ederer, who's with the Muslim Community Center in Charlotte. And we have Paul McAllister, who sent me a really long resume. I don't have time to read, but he's done a lot of work in interfaith as well. He's a Friendship Missionary, he's a Reverend Doctor, and has done work globally on interfaith movements. I'm gonna let them speak in whatever order they want, but they're here to show that this is a Moral Monday movement for every faith tradition. Please join me in welcoming them.
I will be honest, it's absurd that we need to be here this evening, that we need to demand that our government provide the absolute bare minimum for its citizens. And so often, I hear that America is a country based on Judeo-Christian values. But the values that I see reflected in the North Carolina General Assembly are not a reflection of my Jewish values.
Amen.
My faith teaches me that every human being is created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God, and deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. My faith teaches me that if there is a needy person in the community, I am not permitted to harden my heart, but rather that I must open my hand and lend whatever is sufficient to meet their needs. That I need to care for the orphan, the widow, and the stranger, the most vulnerable in our midst. My faith teaches me that my highest obligation is that of pikuach nefesh, to preserve and protect human life.
Yes.
It's absurd that we must be here today, that we need to be here tomorrow and the day after and a month from now and a year from now and years from now. But we do. Because as people of faith, we have a charge to assess the world as it is, to imagine the world as it could be, and to work side by side to create that reality. Just as Moses and the Israelites stood at the edge of the Red Sea, the endless expanse of the water stretching before them, the sound of Pharaoh's chariots rapidly approaching, so too do we stand here with a colossal task before us. But in the words that I read in my prayer book, written by Michael Walzer, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
Peace and blessings, everybody. I just wanted to take a few minutes to reflect. As a Muslim in America, for the last 22 years, we have faced the constant kind of othering and the constant feeling of we are somehow not respected as the rest. So I begin my talk in the name of God, the beneficent and the benevolent and the compassionate and the merciful. This is how each chapter of the Quran begins. And so in this discussion we're having today, we have two main enemies. We have power and wealth, and we have divisive tribalism. So power and wealth, corporate greed, is the source of the problems of racism, why people do not have health care, why immigrants aren't treated as people, why there is major issues in access to all of the basic needs in society. So we have an enemy that I would say, I'm going to go ahead and quote a couple of percentages here, that 67% of eligible voters are actually registered. Then only 53% of those actually vote. And then only 41% of the people who are registered are actually registered as independents. And I want us all, because I have a feeling I'm not talking to a crowd who appreciates perhaps what I'm about to say. If you're thinking that Democrat or Republican is going to solve your problem, just talk to the people and why they don't vote. They feel that whenever my group tells me what they are going to do for me, nothing happens. And so we see that many people in this country, millions upon millions, see the Republican Party as the party of fear-mongering, as the party of white nationalism, as the party of gaslighting realities in favor of a small group of people. They see the Democrats as perpetual tokenization of groups, as endless hope never fulfilled. You can actually study where Democrats or Republicans have the authority and they have full access to actually apply the things they claim, and you see that it never comes to fruition. In the Quran, God teaches us that everything in the heavens and the earth is God's property. We are allowed to use it. Benevolence and beneficence means I care about other people and I'm actively serving their needs. Politicians in this country on both sides of that coin are serving corporate interests, whether it be in Washington, D.C., or in Raleigh, or here in City Council. We see that the policies that come forth are actually just looking out for corporate interest and not for the interest of the people. So we are going to have to mobilize, and we are going to have to talk to people and educate so that we can build a community of people who actually act for their best interests. But we will not do that until the people who are going to be elected, actually we genuinely trust that their integrity is real and they will do something about it. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon. I see that many of us have already departed, so I won't make my comments very long. There's a song I grew up as a child, I learned from my grandmother, and one of the verses goes, "Hark, my soul, seraphic music, from angelic choirs above, witnessing within my spirit that the Lord our God is love." And so all I want to say to us as we stand here together, Jew and Muslim and Christian, and perhaps even atheist and agnostic, that when we love each other, our poverty or our wealth, our gender, be we male, female, or identifying as something beyond binary, when we love each other, that allows us to come together. And when we come together, even as Dr. Barber has already echoed and ministered and preached, and even used a little bit of profane words to help us understand what we can be, then we can rise to the occasion and deal with some of these critical issues, moral issues of our time. I'm representing in this moment an organization called the Interfaith Caucus of the North Carolina Democratic Party. And I know we don't want to get into partisanship, and that's not the point. The point simply is I work with persons who are willing to work with me. And it really does not matter what their affiliation is. What matters is that we're interested in democracy. And even as this banner says, we're making a moral declaration for America. One of those things that we must learn to address together is medical debt. And so I invite you to go to a website, ripmedicaldebt.org. I think you'll find encouragement when you go there. I think you'll find that there's some good-natured, good-hearted people who are working with faith communities and both parties as much as they can to alleviate the burden of medical debt in this state, which is to the tune of over $300 million. If we look across our nation, medical debt surges beyond $200 billion. So we have to come together to deal with this crisis, even as we fight for Medicare for all and universal health care as an advanced society in this world, a leading nation in this world. Love is the principle upon which we do these moral deeds. And as we do these deeds together, I do believe that our work will not be in vain. May God bless you.
Powerful. We're about to bring it home. Hang in a few more minutes. I want to thank QC Family Tree for the art build. Lovely. I also want to point out two really important tables that have been here all evening, because democracy is not a spectator sport. We have League of Women Voters. Y'all wave. Woo! They are here to help people register to vote and to know how to vote. We have Vote Riders. Wave. All right. Because they are here to help you get an ID. None of this is going to happen. None of this is going to change until we vote. You heard it from Reverend Barber. And to vote, you need assistance sometimes because laws keep changing. They're trying to make it tricky, but it's not confusing. The only thing that changes this fall is voter ID. If you don't have one, go to Vote Riders. They can help you. Also, if you don't have one, you show up. If you forgot it, ask for the exemption form. You can actually fill out a form that says, I didn't have transportation and couldn't stand in line for 6 hours at the DMV, because that is an acceptable excuse. If you have an excuse, you don't have transportation, you had to work, they're supposed to accept that. So we want everyone to get an ID. It's going to be even more important in 2024. But remember, don't let it stop you from voting. Tell your friends. The State Board of Election has it on their website. League of Women Voters has it. Vote Riders has it. Google them. Share that, because nothing works and we don't vote. All right. So remember, it's not a spectator sport. Now let me introduce another rabbi to help bring it home. She's an amazing supporter of social justice. You have seen her and heard from her, Rabbi Judy Schindler.
All right, I just want to give you a mantra to take home with you. The whole Jewish world reads the same text from Torah. We open the book of Deuteronomy and we read this phrase. In Hebrew it is tzedek, tzedek tirdof, and in English it is justice, justice you shall pursue. Can everybody say that? Justice, justice you shall pursue. Now some people think that scripture is divinely revealed, literally God's word. Many in this crowd and many others in this crowd believe that the Bible was humanly authored, but either way, every word was chosen with precision. So why the repetition of the word justice? We could debate it as clergy, but we all want to get home. The verse, justice, justice you shall pursue, calls for equal justice across our community. Yes. So I want you to say it. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Justice for the citizen and justice for the stranger. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Justice for those who are marginalized and justice for the mainstream. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Justice in housing and justice in healthcare. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Justice that creates accountability and justice that is restorative and reparative. Justice, justice you shall pursue. justice that touches every sector of society, that is fair to all, no matter the race, religion, or any human element that makes them unique. Justice that breaks the cycle of harmful systems of racism, and justice that is filled with humanity.
Yeah.
Now, I run with wonderful people, we run a Stan Greenspan Holocaust and Social Justice Education Center, and we are here to support the pursuit of justice and strengthen community organizing in Charlotte. So we are here to support you. We have a weekly community organizing calendar and email to promote your organizing efforts. We offer programs to support your social justice work. In September, we have a program on radical self-care for community organizers. We offer certification in social justice and community organizing, a 14-week program led by regional and national experts in organizing, political organizing, digital organizing, relational organizing. Our program includes mentoring and microgrants and praxis projects and micro internships. If you are a community organizer, first of all, thank you for your hard work every day. If you want us to support or promote your work, and if you want to become a community organizer to build strength and power, please Google Stan Greenspan Center. Justice, justice you shall pursue. Justice we shall pursue as individuals, and justice we shall pursue as a community. Justice we shall pursue today, and justice we shall pursue tomorrow. Hand in hand, working together, we will get there. Thank you all for coming.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. Now listen. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Please join me. One foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot and lead with love. Put one foot and lead with love. You gotta put one foot and lead with love. Put one foot and lead with love. Lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. Your path is there. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night.
Hey, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I am Sandra Noble. I am the directly impacted National Chair for the North Carolina Poor People's Campaign. And we want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And this is why we need a third Reconstruction resolution. And we will not be silent anymore. And we're going to do this moving forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Let's take it to the Capitol next time, y'all. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you all for coming again. This is Samantha. I'm a co-chair right here in Charlotte. We have Sangria, one of our state tri-chairs. We have George, also a co-chair, and our tri-chair. We all say thank you so much for being here. You got to get everybody you know and everybody you don't know to vote like we're going to die, because we are killing people. And please, you're all going to come to Raleigh in February, and we're going to take this to our legislatures. And then June 2024, I will see you in D.C.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
We will not be silent anymore. Forward together.
Not one step back.
Come on, Charlotte. Forward together.
Not one step back.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, yes. We did, and we should keep talking. I'm here.
How long do you have?